Educate, inspire, change. Educate yourself, inspire others, change the world.
Hi Sam, how you doing, man?
Welcome, mate.
So what are we going to talk about today?
The topic is disappeared from my screen. I think it's navigating uncertain times
During COVID,
and the meaning crisis.
the meaning crisis. Yeah. So first, elaborate a little bit about the meaning crisis, because I know this has been spoke about a little bit on YouTube. So tell me a little bit about what the meaning crisis is.
Is just the idea that we're seeing propagated throughout the world at the moment, or the movement really, which is where people are feeling a deep loss of meaning in their modern lifestyles and in modern society and culture. And it seems to be at the root also of like depression and anxiety and other psychological issues on a much deeper level, rather than actually, just feeling lost. It all links back to meaning, people trying to find meaning. Why are we here? What are we doing? What's our purpose? How do we find that?
It's crazy. It's almost like it's the elephant in the room, isn't it? Like, I was saying this the other day to you, like, what is reality? What are we even doing here? And I think not enough people are questioning this. This fact, like, this itself is crazy enough, People are often just born and then they're told how to live. They're told the difference between right and wrong. You have to get an education, you have to get married, you have to get a job, and people just live to work, to pay bills, and then die. It can't just be that. And I think this meaning crisis is related to that, related to how we're raised as children, and we're just recycling bad information from our parents, parents. It's generational. And I think psychedelics that we've both done play a big role in a reset button. And they really do remind us why we're here, what we're here to do, and they give us that sense of purpose. And this recent crisis with the COVID has given a lot of people the chance to really reflect and look inwards and work deeply and consider why we're here, and to really prioritize what's important in your life, things like family, diet, exercise, food, meditation, mindfulness. All these things people are now spending a lot of time and energy focusing on. And I'm sure you can talk to that, because me and you have both been trapped at home in the UK, both with our parents under very stressful times. What kind of things did you do yourself to kind of cope with the stresses of COVID?
Yeah, well, I guess for me, my life has been me at home in front of a computer anyway for like the last 8 years, being freelancer wherever I am in the world. So I actually don't find it was as big a transition as it was for many others who are now finding themselves working remotely, not in front of their colleagues, living with friends or family again for the first time in a long time. But that was the main area for me. I had moved back from Melbourne after living in Australia for 3 years, doing studies out there. And I came back to live with my mum just for like 1 month before heading out here to Costa Rica. But the quarantine came in the moment I landed. So I lived at home back with family again. And, I was instantly reminded of like the Ram Dass quote, where he says, if you think you're enlightened, go and spend a weekend with your family, over Thanksgiving. Because our family and friends, these close relationships, they're very important mirrors for us. They're the closest in our relationships. And so anything that we're really dealing with in life will manifest in those close relationships. So they're beautiful mirrors. And a lot came up for me, and a lot came up for my family members as well, because they were now navigating COVID, which was new to them, being at home rather than being at work. And everyone's been taken off the hamster wheel, that they were on before, of going to the gym and work and going here and doing this on the weekend. Suddenly that all stopped. And I saw a lot of turmoil in others of not knowing quite what they're here to do, because they'd been fed an idea. And once they experienced this all this time, they didn't know what to do with themselves.
It's interesting, isn't it? Once you take away someone's job, it's almost like you're taking away their identity, and they're left with this void, and they don't know what to do with it. And people can get confused. They can turn to maybe alcohol or just doing the wrong things with their free time. So with you yourself, I'm guessing you are quite a mindful person. So did you have to practice mindfulness perhaps during COVID to try to fill that void, if you like, try to fill that time, or whenever there's a stressful argument or a stressful time? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, well, at first, because there was so much uncertainty about like what's going on in the world, how this is going to affect my future. I actually went the opposite way. I went like fully stopped my meditation and yoga practice and started just consuming endless amounts of data to try and navigate like what the hell is going on. You know, how big is the pandemic? How many people is it really affecting? Is it going to affect my future? All this stuff, you know. Then going down conspiracy rabbit holes, you know, seeing like, you know, did it come from here? Did it come from there? And just following it because I'm curious. I want to know, you know, what are the things. And that was not serving me. After some time, you realize that there are too many data points for us to really make up a concrete model of what's actually going on, especially if we're just looking from our mobile phones, right? So I dropped that because I saw that it was just leaving me confused and without clarity, and sort of draining my energy too, because these algorithms, these social algorithms, they are attention harvesting algorithms. There's titles and data that is trying purely to get your attention. And even at Facebook, they have psychologists that work to change algorithms to provide content to get you on there for longer. And that drains your energy. So I pivoted across. I started talking about how I was affected by this, made a couple of videos on how to actually navigate it, and really focused on creating a morning routine and a reconnection to myself, my nature, like consciousness in the mornings to set up a solid foundation so I didn't get distracted and brought into those complex internet rabbit holes.
Interesting, yeah. It reminds me of the quote, you don't win or lose, you either win or you learn. And I feel like during this time, how you react to this situation will define how it affects you. So many people can sink into the holes, they can go into depression, or they can start, using alcohol or being unhealthy. And other people, like perhaps you have done, is you can harness this time and really use it as a catalyst for change, and use it as a time to look inwards and to reflect and to think deeply about why you're here, what is your purpose, and purpose is a big thing for me. I always talk about this on my podcasts and everywhere, is once you find your purpose, once you find your calling and you find that there's a meaning to your life, everything else seems to fall into place. And I think that's something that we can all take from this time, is for the first time you have this time on your hands where you can really focus inwards and meditate, try different hobbies, even get out in nature, just be more free and really reflect on what feeds your soul and do the things that you love. And even people that maybe aren't working just now, you could even look at doing the things that you love and try to monetize them and maybe turn your hobby into a pastime, into a job, and this is something that me and you're in a fortunate position where we have created these platforms, and we love what we do. I mean, we're having a conversation right now and this is our business, so we're in a very fortunate position, but many people aren't in that fortunate position. But it's a great opportunity, I think, this time to really deep dive into what makes you tick, why are you here? And it's a question that we don't ask enough. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. As you said before, a bit of an elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Because I guess when you think about your meaning or purpose, you think of it in relationship to the culture and to the societal background or religious background that you're connected to, and then you have family and friend influence, whereas what I feel like I've learned is that meaning or purpose is really inspired and comes from a vitalizing place of being connected to your soul, which again was a orientation which to me was new age crap until I really started to, I guess, practice meditation, yoga, and feel that. Because then I was feeling inspired to do certain things, and then by following those, doors and opportunities started to unlock, purely because I really stepped up to the unknown and said, right, I'm going to do this as a job, even though I don't know where it's going to end up. And then by doing that, suddenly everything opened up.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot in your perspective and in others, that by jumping into the unknown, by following our inspiration, seems to catalyze the whole meaning and purpose approach. So I guess for you, does that relate to your journey in any way?
Very much.
And
yeah, definitely just diving into the unknown, taking risks and having good intentions. make a big difference. So when I created Educate, Inspire, Change, I had no idea about online business, about social media. I just took a big risk and I sacrificed a full-time income just to focus all my energy into this. And for the first 2 years of Educate, Inspire, Change, I didn't make a penny.
Right.
And there was people from all angles telling me I was crazy, saying get a real job and do all this. But in my heart, I was focused on my dream, my goal. I think that's what proved to help me to be successful compared to the rest, you know. And I think this is something that people can learn from as well, just having that drive and conviction in yourself and your own beliefs. And if you're doing what you love, just keep doing it, and eventually something good will come of it, you know. Too many people these days, I think, are shaped by society, by culture, and by their parents, and by those voices in their head telling you that, you know, it's too risky, or it's too dangerous, or don't do this, or don't do that, or this is not acceptable in society, or whatever it might be. I think people need to really reconnect to themselves and only that little voice that's from your heart. You know, for many years I was listening to the voice in my head, and the voice in your head always tells you what makes you the best money, what's the safest option, what's going to cause the least disruption, what's going to be the easiest to do, all this kind of stuff that causes minimal kind of friction. Whereas my heart's telling me, no, just take a backpack, go out there, take a risk, do something, you know, go skydiving, do psychedelics, all this kind of stuff that maybe your ego will stop you from doing, you know, because our egos they don't want us to take risks. Our ego wants to keep you very safe. It wants to keep you in that sofa at home watching that TV in a very safe environment where it can control you and manage you, you know. But your soul wants to be free. Your soul wants to be released. Your soul wants to experience life and all the joys it has to offer. But like a good example is a friend of mine I did DMT recently, and I had a close friend of mine who was by my side. And in the last moment, my friend was like, "Oh no, I can't do it anymore. I changed my mind." And it made me think that the only reason they were saying no in that moment was their ego was scared of what might happen or what might go wrong in that moment. But their soul was crying out to have a soul-level deep journey into the cosmos and to really have this deep, profound awakening or rebirth or whatever it might be. But the ego was scared of this because the ego knows that when you have these experiences, the ego will be minimized and pushed away. It doesn't want this because when the ego goes, it almost can't protect you.
Absolutely, yeah. That the ego, as I see it, is literally the boundaries that are created to actually protect us and keep us alive and keep us safe. Yes. It's the process of creating boundaries to keep us safe, and they're often made up of like all of the conditioning as well that come up. So they're not just, we can have unhealthy sort of boundaries that have been built up maybe by traumatic experiences, you know, in the past, which then like say close up and create boundaries around our heart and the way we express ourselves. Yes. And these are the sort of boundaries that get dissolved on psychedelics, because psychedelics are boundary dissolving. That is like precisely what a psychedelic medicine do. It dissolves all the boundaries and you begin to see through all of the cultural conditionings and limitations and limiting beliefs that you have around yourself. And I think in some ways the fear towards diving into these unknown situations is good, because if you don't feel any fear, you're probably not human, right? That is there. That normally, like that fear can be catalyzed as telling you that you are about to make a big leap and step, and that it requires the necessary amount of courage to actually do it in relationship to the fear, you know? It's like, I'm pretty sure it was Brene Brown that said something like, in life there's comfort and there's growth, and you get to choose one, you know? And I guess we go through cycles. You're gonna have growth processes, then you're gonna integrate and have comfort. But if you're just in comfort all the time, you'll be stagnating. So, you know, a little bit of fear is good.
It's an interesting element of the human condition, isn't it? Is how growth is immediately related to pain or discomfort. Why do you think we as humans need to go through this pain or discomfort in order to grow? It's a tough question, I know, but like it's not easy answered, is it?
Yeah. There's no coming.
It seems to be that friction is what causes the growth. Even in relationships, like when you're having a wife or a partner or a boyfriend, and if there's never an argument, chances are there's something wrong with the relationship, because you almost need this friction to really learn and grow and together, you know. And it's the same in life with anything, whether it's if you're in a job and there's no friction, there's no challenges, and you're just going to be stagnant, aren't you?
Absolutely.
It's like stagnant energy. And again, we can learn from nature. We spoke about this the other day, I think, in nature, and how nature is never still. Nature is constantly transforming, constantly moving, constantly rebirth and death, and everything is growing and dying constantly, and humans can learn from this, because when humans start to become stagnant and energy starts to become still, this is when disease grows, when pain grows, discomfort grows. That's places where addiction can form and all this kind of stuff can grow, and as long as we keep moving, keep changing, keep evolving, keep trying to grow, keep focusing on what's next and what's the goal, and all this kind of stuff, I think this is where the secret lies, and not being stagnant and growing.
Yeah. I was thinking about this morning, that like when we feel these obstacles, when we're faced with a challenge or an opportunity to step up and move forwards, a lot of fear is there, and there's an energy of like a block. But in my personal experience, that block is there because it's the next lesson I need. It's the edge of my comfort zone, and it's always the edge of the comfort zone. And what seems to happen for me is that when I step up to leap into this energetic boundary, what happens is I sort of pass through it in a way, and then that energy ends up being a catalyst from behind me. It's like at first it's in front and I'm blocked by it, but as I step into it, I move through it, and then I'm catalyzed forwards. And now that energy is behind me. And I've recognized that in like sort of stepping up to teaching at the moment, in that like when I feel like I'm offering guidance to other people, whether it's through yoga, meditation, or other stuff, it always seems to be that I'm able to translate messages that is helpful for individuals, because I've passed through the caves that they've not yet gone through, because I've like gone through these energetic boundaries that they're facing, and I've passed through the other side, so I can sort of give them the inspiration to pass through. I can't take them through; they have to do that themselves. But I feel like everyone knows if someone's really done something, or if they're lying, because the energy is there. It's more of a knowing, embodied energy. And so you seem to accumulate this energy by going through those boundaries. Yeah.
Beautiful.
How that resonates with you.
No, it definitely does. Yeah. I mean, talking about that, like with dealing with things face on, and then using them to catapult you into a new area of confidence, of growth. Psychedelics for me has been like that. Often during psychedelics, especially the tougher plant medicines like ayahuasca or iboga, when something very difficult is in front of you, as soon as you confront it and surrender to it and go through it, the rest of the journey becomes so beautiful. But you need to do that initial hard work to get to the other end, and if you don't do it, your whole night just tends to be a little bit lost and confused and disjointed, and it really requires, it's teaching us to go towards what's difficult, to push through the pain, to face our fears. And this is another very common thing that maybe we can talk about today. Is obviously we're talking about having to navigate during uncertain times with COVID, and dealing with family stresses and work stresses and money stresses. Is a lot of the stresses that we experience and live, a lot of them come from unhealthy relationships with family in the first place, and unhealthy relationships with yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, or if you're not happy with who you are or where you're going in life, chances are the relationships around you are also going to be unhappy or unhealthy in some way or another. So to anyone out there who's listening to this, and if you're maybe at home with your family and there's stress, there's arguments, friction, I think the important thing you could do is really reflect and look inwards and look at your life and look at the things that you can change, because you might not be able to change the way your partner treats you or the way your mother-in-law treats you, but you can change the way you perceive it, you can change the way you receive it, you can change your own frequency, you can start to practice mindfulness, you can start to eat healthier, you could create a bubble in your own world of protection around you.
You can set boundaries is a big one.
Exactly.
Yeah, like energetic boundaries of like what you're willing to accept or not accept, because there's also, when there is people triggering you in certain ways, what I've noticed is that in a way we can choose whether or not we allow that energy to take it on board or not. But it's a process of learning how to actually do that, and part of it is, as you said before, it's surrendering to the challenge when they appear, or to the psychedelics, so that we can get in touch with the spirit and the soul rather than the ego, which keeps getting triggered all the time. Because it's made up of these boundaries that are formed over time to protect us. But there might not be as much growth if we're fully just in that comfort mode. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think I see this in you a little bit because we've obviously been spending quite a lot of time lately, and I see your ability to manage your energy, create boundaries with your time, with your energy, where you are, and all that. Whereas with me, I think maybe being on the spiritual path, often you can give your energy away too freely. And I certainly, I've done this. It's been a habit of mine, giving my time away, giving my energy away to anyone that asks for it at all times. Like I'll get emails, I'll get texts, and I'm dealing with everyone. I'm talking to my family, and I'm always replying very quickly and always there. And often that can leave me depleted and not able to maybe handle stressful situations or not able to focus my energy in the right places. So I think that's something I've even been learning from you a little bit lately, is seeing you doing this and navigating it. But it's something you have to teach yourself to do. You have to unlearn a lot of your old ways, a lot of your old habits, because it can be difficult to let go of the way you've lived for 30 years and then start fresh. So it's just about, I think, just practicing every day, little by little, and making those changes to your boundaries and learning to say no is a big one. Because often it's not nice to say no to people. It may be a little bit of discomfort there again. Going back to this subject of pain, discomfort, saying no to someone isn't a pleasant thing to say because they might be upset at the result. It's not a nice thing to say, but it's necessary in order for the best thing to come out of that relationship or friendship. So I think saying no for me is a big one. It's something I don't do enough.
Yeah, and I feel it comes on to more of the intuition level. Like I can't tell somebody else when they should be saying no in their lives, but they know when they should be saying no because they'll feel it. If you keep feeling drained because someone's overstepping your boundaries all the time, tune into that or listen into it, or when you're journaling, it will come up, and then next time to slowly set boundaries. And you have to do that because that's part of loving yourself. Really loving yourself enough to set boundaries so that you can make space for yourself. It doesn't mean don't give time for others. It means that if you create boundaries to get in touch with your own energy, then later on you'll be able to give more to those people when you are opening up. Otherwise, like at the moment, most people in the modern society, a lot of us we're just leaking energy all over the place. We're getting up, we're drinking coffee to get stimulated, we're watching TV, we're doing different addictive behaviors that aren't serving us. We're getting lost down data streams, like just consuming content. We're doing all these things where our attention, which is really our energy, is getting put in all these different directions. And it really is quite difficult. It's so hard for me to really plug up those holes in my life, see which ones are or aren't serving me, and then be able to sort of practice and manage energy. But before, again, that was very like quacky and new agey to me. But I feel like through meditation, you start to really tune into this and really get to know what is and isn't serving you more clearly. It
reminds me of a quote, or I think it's a proverb, where the language of God is silence. And like sometimes the only way you can find the answers is by being still and just sitting with your, just trying to be still and know.
Absolutely.
And because often we can overthink. Like I'm a classic overthinker, as you know. Like I'm always trying to solve problems, figure out answers, and sometimes you need to just be still and be in the moment and be grateful and be content, and the answers just kind of come to you from nowhere, almost out of thin air.
And that is not unusual because it's not talked about that much. But even when you look at some of the visionary breakthroughs when it comes to Francis Crick finding DNA, or Einstein working out certain algebra, or Galileo having answers come to him. They seem to, many people in history have talked about these answers coming to them instantly, fully packed, in between the space of thinking. Like when they've actually gone for a walk, or they're journaling, or they're making time for themselves, for these ideas to come literally fully packaged, right? And then they use the mind to unravel them, which I really resonate with, because sometimes I get the answer to something and I'm like, I feel it, and then I have to spend 5 minutes unraveling it to really explain the aha sort of breakthrough moment that I had, you know? So I resonate with what you're saying there.
It's funny you saying that, because I often get most of my aha moments in the shower.
Right.
You know, when I'm not thinking about anything, I'm just in the shower,
Yeah.
washing my hair, but then all of a sudden an idea popped into my mind, you know.
Yes.
And it's because at that moment my mind is decluttered.
Mm-hmm.
Any other time of the day, I'm busy watching my phone screen or the laptop or a TV or playing with my kids. I'm never really just alone with my thoughts and just focusing on just watching myself. Because I think when you can just focus on, it's another thing, this is why people go running a lot. You know, or because you're just focusing on running and the direction you're going and nothing else. And during that time when you're running, often that's when you can have your most inspirational thoughts or ideas or whatever can just come to you because you're completely just you in the road, nothing else, you know. Whereas often we're always distracted by everything around us, whether it's animals, pets, humans, TV, cars, computers. There's always distractions around us, and it's only when you can really either focus on one thing or even focus on nothing and meditate. That's when it seems to be there's some kind of energy and untouched intelligence that we can tap into during that time. It's really quite magical.
Yeah, like everyone has different words for it, whether it's like spirit, soul, God, consciousness, awareness, the Holy Spirit, like whatever it is, they all tend to link to this unspeakable place in between thoughts, you know, the actual essence of what we are. And that is so intelligent. It's what nature is and it's what we are. There's no divide. It's tapping into that intelligence. There's even the idea that there was a study saying that 95% of people's thoughts are the same as the day before. Right? So we spend the whole day thinking where the new ideas going to come from. You know, they come from connecting to whatever you want to call it, the spirit, the soul, God, whatever. In between the words, the silence. That's where it really.
It reminds me of the scientist Nikola Tesla, and he had a theory. I think it was just a theory that he thought that he looked at humans the way you look at maybe radio receivers, and he felt like we're all radio receivers and we're all tuned into some kind of source somewhere. And it's about learning how to tap into that frequency. And some people are just mindlessly going along their life, not even aware of the signal, but other people are stopping and being silent, and then in that moment that signal is at its strongest. And it's a beautiful thought that we're all connected to the same source, and from a scientific and a spiritual point of view, this is what they're all saying, aren't they? That we're all connected scientifically, we're all connected, we're all like an ocean of atoms. We're all part of the same energy field. And spirituality talks about God or oneness or wholeness and how we're all connected, and it really is a theme. And I think as spirituality evolves more and as science evolves more, it's almost merging into one.
Definitely. They're totally compatible with each other. They're just different lenses for a reality that is far more complex than we can actually comprehend. You know, they're just maps. It's why it's so interesting having these conversations, because we can talk about it from a scientific or a psychological or a spiritual or a religious context to break things down. Some people tend to sort of hit on religion and say that, like, you know, it's a fully formed map and it doesn't have space for evolution, which is largely the case because it doesn't change and update with new information. Science does, and it does keep updating. And spirituality, in my experience, and for most people I talk to, also does, because we learn new stuff, we connect more to the source, we practice meditation, we see through our bullshit and like stuff that's holding us back, and we move forward. And there's just that shows how they can both work together, and they're not separate. They're just different mental lenses.
So now it seems to be a theme of this conversation is constant change. Nature, always changing, always pushing, always facing your pain. And again, like spirituality, science, they're always striving to be better. It's always changing. They're always looking for like, they're always willing to say, yes, his idea was wrong and today's idea is correct. There's not that strict dogmatic approach of this is the answer, this is right, and it can never be different. Science and spirituality is always adaptable, and adaptability is the new way of surviving. It used to be the strongest will survive. Now it's the most adaptable, the most receptive to change will survive, because we're no longer in caveman days. We're no longer in that time. We don't need to kill to eat our food. We don't need to kill to survive. We can now live, and we can live in abundance. And now that we're living in this abundance, this is why things like war and armies and soldiers are becoming so obsolete. Because why do we need to have violence to enforce our ideas? If you need violence to enforce your ideas, then your ideas are worthless. You know, we're now evolving. We're getting to this stage in life where we can just really enjoy life and enjoy its abundance and start to think inwardly and go deeper and connect and hopefully change the way the world is managed, because this is perhaps something else we can move on to just as the conversation is flowing and into the systems that manage the world. Obviously, talking about COVID, it's shining a light on the political system, it's shining a light on the educational, on the health system, and all sorts of systems, and how many of them are run by corrupt people whose main focus is money or power. And we really need to change this lens and change the morals behind these systems from being profit and money to being morals and what's best for humanity and for the world and the environment. And I think there's a few countries that are slowly leading the way. There are some countries in the world, if you look at, I think, Iceland, even Scotland to an extent, with the leaders, and I can't remember where else, maybe New Zealand. And the one thing those countries have in common, they all have female leaders. And these countries seem to be putting at the forefront of their agenda is mental health, is education, is all these kind of things, instead of how much money are we making, who's got the biggest army, all this kind of stuff, So slowly there are some examples popping up, and it's a lot to do with this female energy coming to the forefront. And even when I say female energy, it doesn't need to be females, it can be men that embody their feminine energy.
I've suffered from bad sleeping patterns for years, and that's why I was delighted to come across a great company called Ra Optics. Ra Optics is a blue light blocking company that's owned by my now dear friend Matt Maruka. As a kid, Matt himself suffered from debilitating headaches, allergies and gut issues, and that's why he started researching healing modalities. It was during his research that he discovered the importance of natural light for the human body, and I'm really glad that he did this research because I've been benefiting from these glasses myself for the last year. I've been wearing them day and night when using computers, and I can honestly say that these glasses have helped me improve my sleep and quality of life. That's why I'm recommending with extreme confidence that you check out his website, ratoptics.com, and use the code EIC15 for an amazing 15% discount on your first purchase. And not only are these glasses great for your health, they look really cool too. Whilst in Costa Rica last year, I came across a guy by the name of Anthony Walsh, who handed me a bottle of hemp extract CBD oil. And after just taking a few drops, I was sold. I immediately felt more relaxed, less stressed. I found the quality of my sleep improved, and it even helped me with my meditation practices. The reason this product stands out for me was Anthony himself is passionate about healing the world one person at a time, and has personally invested thousands of hours researching CBD and cannabinoids in order to fully understand how to help guide others to receive the maximum benefits of taking hemp oil extracts. His company is called EIC Life Supplements, and I highly recommend it to anyone that wants to have a better, happier and healthier life. It's 100% natural, organically grown, all natural and non-GMO guaranteed for your best experience. To order yours now, please visit ecolifesupplements.com and quote coupon code INSPIRECHANGE for a 10% discount, and they are currently only delivering in the US.
Absolutely, yeah, I really feel that. There's the primary sort of issue I see in the world is more in line with that approach of seeing that the male dominant ego has been running the show. The masculine approach of mostly men dominating all the different industries and raking in all of the resources. You can even see that with the billionaires that made hundreds of billions over COVID, didn't lose out as many other people have done. And I don't see any of those billionaires coming to the forefront and actually talking about humanity can do better, or can shift in other ways, or helping with mental health or different philosophies and ethics that we can do working together. We don't see that. And so I think you're right. We've shone a light on how the system is not working for the people in the way we think it is, or at least it's also not supported by the kinds of people that are really serving the people, So there's an issue there. And of course, the feminine energy of that I see again in relationship to my psychedelic journeys. It's always been coming back to nature, to the feminine, to Mother Earth, to being more receptive, to being more in alignment and in relationship to the earth that I am standing on, which is often mapped out as the feminine, the creation, versus the masculine side, which is more sort of void, consciousness, direction, focused, productivity, progress kind of vibe, which you can see is the imbalance there. It's going on. So I think even if it is temporary, of course, we need that feminine energy back to balance things out, because it seems to be all one way. The shift seems to be happening. That's definitely what we need.
100%. It leads me on to something else that just I was listening to Terence McKenna last night, as I do most nights in bed, and he came up. This is in 1992, and this guy is so far ahead of his time. He was talking about the difference with globalization and defragmentation. So he was saying that at the time in 1972 there were 3 billionaires in America, and then in 1992 there were something like 80 billionaires. And now I'm sure there's thousands or hundreds at least of billionaires around the USA and the world. And he was saying how this is a clear agenda of globalization, and how there's just a few people at the top that are getting richer and richer, and they're getting a massive control over the entire world. And the people that are losing out are people like me and you, like with the middlemen. So they're getting all this wealth, and their wealth is to be taken from somewhere. It's from us, And he was saying how fundamentally human nature wants to defragment, and he was saying how this is going to happen whether we like it or not, because if you imagine, like, if you are born on a piece of land and someone else is born on a piece of land, you naturally want to protect you where you are. You naturally want to have sovereignty over your area, over your body, where you are. So people around the world, if you would ask them all to vote, like in certain cities or towns or villages, chances are they would vote to have control over their area. Chances are that people would say, yes, this is our 100 acres of land, and we would like to decide how we behave in this land. We want to decide how we can grow food in this land. We want to decide what laws we make in this land. We want to decide how we govern ourselves and what the sentences are for different crimes. We don't want one person who sits 1,000 miles away to decide for us who's going to govern our laws, Or if you ask people on an individual level, most humans want to have control over their immediate control over what happens to them, their friends and their family, and what happens on their land. He said, because this is the way the human brain is, we're from tribes. We naturally want to defragment. We don't want to globalize. We don't want to, and even the free trade has a big impact on this as well. Is being able to sell like Toyotas in Japan to Jamaica. This is a bad thing, because it takes away. It makes it too easy to sell garbage everywhere. Do you know what I mean? And it puts less of an emphasis on manufacturers, on local farmers, on local buildings. So it just led me on to another thing. You're talking about male and female energy. The male energy almost wants to dominate. Male energy wants to control, and it wants to. This is why we have so many male billionaires.
Yeah, I definitely say that like unintegrated, imbalanced male energy wants to dominate. Yeah, for sure. And we're slowly learning. From what I'm seeing is like when there's this whole move about toxic masculinity being a massive issue, and when I look at it. It's not that there's an overabundance of masculinity to me. It's really actually there's a lack of integrated masculinity. We have like a lot of boys with childhood traumas and unprocessed shadows, basically just out there with egos fully flaring, acting like little kids in suits. Trying to dominate like the childhood tyrant in a high chair, because they haven't actually integrated their shadow side, which is a full process, and we could go into that, of balancing the feminine and the masculine energies within us, and being receptive to our own bullshit and seeing what the ways in which we're acting aren't serving, and so I feel like that's a super interesting conversation. And the globalization stuff, I don't know too much to say on that. I'm not too well versed on that side of things of the politics, but I can see that global collectivist movements have, for the large part, had a bit of a monopoly on genocide and on movements that haven't served the collective ultimately. Perhaps because at the top, they've eventually got distorted at some level, which has then again trickled down and had people go on power trips. So I don't know if that would work again or will ever work, I'm not sure. But I do also support collectivist movements in how we can distribute resources in a more equal way amongst communities. It's just that maybe those communities are smaller rather than global, perhaps, and maybe they still work together. I'm not sure.
It's an interesting topic, isn't it? We could probably dive deep into that for hours and hours and hours. But I too am not too well versed on globalization or the free trade thing. So it's just something that I listened to last night, and I found it to be really interesting. And I think it links to the female masculine imbalance. But you said something that was quite interesting there. You spoke about how most boys never become men.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot to do with childhood trauma and not being able to deal with the childhood trauma correctly, and therefore never growing up. And I can even talk about this from a personal level. I don't mind, being a little bit vulnerable talking about that. As I feel like I'm still in the process of becoming a man at 37. I'm not scared to admit that, because I think it's a common trait, especially now as people are getting older later. Generations are changing and things are evolving differently. And like now they say 30 is a new 20. This is what they kind of say, and people are dying later. And I feel like the problem is now is, like you said there, with boys who never become men, and those men get into positions of power. And just like a child would throw a tantrum, whether it would impose themselves on another human, whether it's sexually, whether it's physically, whatever it is, whether it's using money as power or dominating women or controlling men. This is what boys would do in a playground or in a nursery when they're angry. And it seems to be these angry little boys are never becoming men, and they're growing up, and then all of a sudden someone's giving them like the keys to the country, and they're left to roam free, and then we end up with leaders like George Bush and Donald Trump, and they're trigger-happy presidents that are, that don't think twice about bombing some poor family in a tent in Afghanistan to control poppy fields that are making them millions of pounds every day, So it's just insane that these people are given the keys to the world, and I think a lot of it is down to this imbalance. And I'm trying to think about solutions as well, because we're focusing a lot on the problems, but we maybe could talk a bit more about solutions.
Sure.
And I think educational, at the education level, at the young children level, how we parent children, how we educate children, is really where the root cause for me, the problems of society beginning, because I was raised by my parents, you were raised by your parents, and we've spent our whole life unlearning what we were taught. By not just our parents, by our schools, by education, by governments, by society, by culture. We've had to unlearn. It's been a tough battle unlearning. We're always having to learn, read books, watch documentaries, study, research, do psychedelics, do meditation, do yoga, just to relearn life. And I think my responsibility to my children now is trying to teach them the most, how can I explain, just the most positive way to live, without enforcing my ways on them. I want them to be free, I want them to be sovereign, I want them to question everything, even to question me. And I feel like this is a key thing that parents need to realise, and teachers need to realise as well, and to let your children learn through experience, give them that creative right, and don't pummel it away, so they can be what they want to be and learn the most natural way, the way nature intended. I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that, because most of our educational systems, at least in the European models that I've been in, are who can regurgitate the most information, and those who can get the best grades. And there isn't much space for the arts or creativity or any sort of other modality of expression which is also intelligent, right? So yeah, I feel like there's a big shift of people realizing, and I've seen this in myself, that the real source of wisdom comes through intuition, comes from nature, which we are. And so there's inner tuition, teaching from within, that at the source of all, we can go to books, and that is secondary, and it's brilliant to read what other people have done and accumulate and through the science to understand data, and that's all awesome. But I feel like that should be 50% of it, and the other 50% is like getting in touch with what we are, our nature, our essential source, and then expressing that fully, into the world, and then having a relationship with that data and the secondary sources of information and science that we're accumulating. But at the moment, it seems to be all one way. Like a couple of years ago, if I'd started talking about intuition as a source of information, I don't know, I wouldn't again have connected with people. But since we're talking about learning through experience, through embodiment, through ontological direct feeling and challenges, that is where great sources of wisdom can come from, and that is from being in relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I really feel like that's the shift.
Big time. So like I think for me, working with plant medicine, mindfulness, being mindful how we teach our children, those are for me the key areas that I think I could advise people to focus on. Live mindfully. Be mindful even how you're raising your children.
Mm-hmm.
What walls are you creating for them? Like for example, many walls were created for me as a child. Walls as to what food I should eat. Walls as to what I should become when I'm older. What job I should have. What kind of woman I should marry. What kind of clothes I should wear. What kind of way I should behave. These were all walls that I had to break down myself. So I think I suppose what I'm trying to say and communicate to people watching this now is, I'm sure most people watching this have children around them, or their parents, or they have some children in the family. Just be mindful how you're raising them. Be mindful what kind of messages you're sending them, and give them the freedom to really grow themselves and explore nature and be in tune with themselves. And don't force anything on them. Find out what naturally they find creative. Find out naturally what they love doing, and then nudge them in that direction. Perhaps, just encourage them, guide them. Don't push them in any way. I think that resonates with me a lot, since I have two young children just now, aged 4 and 5, and I can see that the children are our future generations, and what we do, how we treat them, will define the future of the planet. That's just common sense. But I think people don't focus enough on that. They focus more on how can we as adults now change the world. We only have a limited time to work with. We've only got 20 or 30 years left when we're young and physical and capable, But if we focus a lot of our energy on our children, they've got another 50, 60, 70 years ahead of them where they can really bring about real change,
Mm-hmm.
And for me, psychedelics were a great catalyst for me and helping me reconnect to my soul. And then also through healing me, those psychedelics are healing my children and my children's children. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing to say, So I think, the ultimate message I'm getting from this is the children are our future, and we really need to, and how we live is going to define how they live, And then we can't regurgitate old bad methods that are broken. We need to give them the ability to rise up and create new systems.
Yeah, I didn't have children, but I do feel like I'm seeing that there's a responsibility arising in myself to sort of turn my back on these old models of education, of society, of civilization that aren't serving that betterment of humanity. And I guess that involves, as you're doing, taking kids out and moving them to an alternative school, which is happening in Costa Rica, which is more of like a Steiner approach, more natural, more intuitive, more letting the kid grow by themselves and giving them support. I really feel like that. And I feel like as adults, we can also do that to ourselves. We can learn. There's a whole process of reparenting ourselves, which I've not gone too deeply in, but it's very much about learning how to make space in our lives for that natural intuition and curiosity to return. Because we talk about how like there's this thing we heard a few days ago in our conversations, a piece of data that said that children ask roughly 85 to 90 questions a day, whereas adults upwards of age 60 ask 5. And so it seems to some degree, or to a lot, the curiosity has got lost there, that childlike curiosity of just being playful and seeing, what might be different from what I know could come back. As I think as adults we can make, or we should make space for this in our day to reflect and be curious and open up and make space, not to do anything specifically, but to have non-specific time for creativity to emerge again.
Yeah, beautiful. It reminds me of another quote or proverb that I've heard when it says, when children arrive, it's time for us to not teach them our old ways, but to learn from them.
Definitely.
Children can teach us just by watching a child play and how curious they are, how much they love everyone equally, how much there's no, like for example, no child is born a racist. So that's one big thing all adults can learn from straight away. Do you understand? Racism is taught by adults to children. They're completely non-judgmental, completely innocent, completely in awe at everything, nature, whatever they see, books and programs, they're just completely in awe, and they soak in every moment with intense amazement and awe. And that's why when we were children, I remember when I was a child how long a summer felt, like it was like maybe 2 or 3 months, but it felt like a year. in the child's world, because every morning, every day, you're waking up with enthusiasm and excitement and gratitude and love, and you're feeling their emotions. Some days you're crying, some days you're laughing. You're just experiencing life for what it's meant to be. And then slowly, as you grow up, things happen. People mistreat you. You see people mistreat each other. You see people harming. You see abuse, and you start to lose a bit of faith in humanity. And then you start to realize that you have to lie to get your way, or you have to lie to defend yourself, or your ego starts to protect you in many ways. Your ego starts to come in and says, if I do this, I get this, or if I do this, I get that. And it's no longer that innocent child anymore. It becomes this maybe manipulative person that has to duck and dive to get their way, to get far in life. You need to be ruthless, you need to be really driven, you need to be really focused, you need to be really competitive, and slowly this masculine energy takes over. And this is like a trait that we all have probably been through in our lives, and I think it's about just keeping that childlike innocence and just maintaining that awe of life every day. And like even we're now in Costa Rica, and even going out, and the amount of times me and you will just sit and stare at ants and just stare at a leaf and smell a flower, things that we never done back home or didn't do very often, And I think it's going back to that childlike innocence that's really the key to enjoying life and embracing life.
Yeah, man. I really feel that. There's even, I'm brought to think of the Zen or the Buddhist approach of they saying beginner's mind is necessary. That if we have a mind that's all about professional, we know everything, then the cup's full, there's no more space.
Yeah.
But if you turn up with beginner's mind of not knowing, then you're able to actually learn new things because you're coming with an empty cup kind of thing. And of course, how could we possibly know what is going to happen next? So much of even this conversation, so this is focused around uncertainty in chaotic times, right? We couldn't possibly know what's going to happen next. There's no way. And so even to bring in anxiety and doubts about the future is it's betting against yourself, because you're saying that, well, I'm imagining this scenario is going to happen, so I'm betting on it happening. And then it generates anxiety in us. Yeah. But actually, if we're able, and I know it's difficult at first, this is not an easy thing, this is a lifelong process. But if we can learn to connect with I don't know and not knowing, and that childhood space, we can look at the world, the same things, the same routines that we already have, with completely fresh eyes, with newness, with freshness, with inspiration, with then a source, your source, which is inspiring you. That's been a key thing for me, because the Zen and the Buddhist traditions are very much focused on the now moment and not trying to change things, but just tuning in with what's happening. So even if it's just making a cup of tea, just make the cup of tea. Just really notice that you're stirring the cup and you're there, and you start to find enjoyment in what was otherwise such a mundane thing, because we're rushing around in our heads. So I really feel that's so important. What you're saying is this rekindling of childlike curiosity again, to sort of offset what is an otherwise super thought-filled lifestyle, where it's just all about the inner thinking. So yeah, that balance is so important.
Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, and I suppose this leads me into another subject now where we can talk about is the original plan for this live was talking about uncertain times and COVID, and there's going to be many people who perhaps are losing businesses at this time, and they're having to rethink and be creative and pivot and do new things, and talking about tapping into creative energies, talking about tapping into inspiration, talking about tapping into the silence and downloading information. Maybe now is a time when you can really be at your most creative, and maybe now is a time when because we're forced to pivot, even us with our businesses, we're having to be creative and think outside the box. How can we generate income? How can we monetize this? What can we do? How can we attract new viewers? How can we attract more listeners? All this kind of stuff. We're having to think outside the box. And it's a time where we're taking it on board as a challenge, and it's a time where we can really grow and hopefully enter into new areas and charter new territory. So I think for people listening to this who maybe are out of business, or you've lost a job, or you've lost a business, as hard as it may be, this could be a gift. It could be a time for you to really change how you view life, start doing what you love, start thinking about creative ways to generate income, creative ways to maybe turn your hobby into a work and to a job, and so many different things that we can look at just now, and just harnessing that creative energy, I suppose, to make the most of this hard time.
Yeah, we're in a time where there's more opportunity than ever. You can literally go online and create any number of unthinkably strange and unusual businesses and ways of making money. You know, we're seeing it all the time at the moment. And yeah, like, it would be necessary. I think quarantine and being on furlough really is giving people an opportunity to reflect and maybe see, those things that aren't serving them, or those passions and hobbies and inspirations they had as a child. Then I have a space to sort of reopen time for that. But I imagine it's also so difficult because of financial issues and so on. So it is such a strange one, but it can be shifted to.
Yeah, it's a strange one, but I mean, if you own one of these, like, you're connected to the world. Do you understand? And I do feel like with the this is the new age of the internet. Yeah, we're really living in it in the moment, and maybe we can't appreciate just how powerful this is. But literally, anyone with a phone, anyone with access to Wi-Fi or the internet, you can really create anything you want to do. Educate, Inspire, Change was once just a Facebook page created on a platform, and everyone has the same access, the same ability to create a business. I know I follow a entrepreneurial kind of motivational speaker called Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's a great source of inspiration to me when it comes to work, when I'm always looking for inspiration as to, or even motivation, if you like, when I wanted to work. Maybe I'm getting a bit lazy, and I listen to his videos, and he really inspires me, and he reminds me that anyone can do anything with the power of a phone. I mean, he does a lot of buying and selling. He'll literally walk up to the nearest garage sale. He'll buy these cheap, old-fashioned things that were maybe big in the 80s and 70s. You'll find a market for them online and sell them at 20 times the price online. He said anyone can do this. You can do it online. You can even go on eBay. You can go. There's so many ways to be creative. Is what I'm trying to say. Using the internet, you can create content. You can make a video. You can put it online at almost zero cost. You can just really get yourself out there. If you have a talent or a skill, you could film it, you can put it out there, you can send it to everywhere you want. There's just so many ways now where we can be creative, where we can harness our skills, whether it's buying or selling, whatever it might be, that you can do to make money. So I would just say to people to check out Gary Vaynerchuk. There's even, I think, a couple of years ago, he put a challenge to people where he said, I challenge anyone that can go out there and they can make like $100 in a day. And there's many people that could do it just by going online, just by finding ways to buy and sell, to be creative, to sell their services, to do whatever it takes online. So I think just maybe reminding people out there who are listening to this, who maybe are struggling for money, struggling for cash, just get creative. There are people out there like Gary Vaynerchuk that can give you really good advice and support as to how to maybe generate that little bit of income, how to be creative with whatever limited tools or limited abilities that you have. Did any of that hit home with you or resonate with you?
Yeah. I resonate with it. I'm also hyper aware that there are a lot of people that, they don't want to sort of do anything just to make cash sort of thing. So I'm super interested in the combination of this whole conversation around of course using this time to be open to reflect on what is and isn't serving, and then also recognize that whatever your unique talents are, you can make a business out of it for sure. That's huge. You could definitely go online and hustle and do this kind of thing, and that's awesome when people do that. And I'm also interested in how I'm seeing so many people turn their very specific niche skill set or healing or just unique area into an actual business, because that's also what's needed right now. That's really what the medicine is, I think, of people being so radically authentic that the way in which they are fully expressing themselves is also their job. And I think that is an opportunity, and there's a space for everyone in that realm too, and I feel that's something I'm moving into, but it's early days.
Yeah, definitely. It's been an interesting conversation, Sam. We've spoke about a hell of a lot. We've been through a whole plethora of things, and we're coming up to an hour now. You can follow my podcast, Educate, Inspire, Change, are available on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. I'd also love to hear your messages directly, so please feel free to contact us at the page. Sam's also on Instagram. Do you want to give your Instagram handle?
Instagram is Wizard of Zen.
And my Instagram is Conscious Kash. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll speak to you guys soon.
Thank you so much for listening to the Educate, Inspire, Change with Kash podcast. Your support means a lot to me, and if you would like to continue supporting me, please follow and subscribe. We're on SoundCloud, Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, and iTunes. And please leave a positive review wherever you can. Thank you. I'm proud to say that one of the first sponsors I have for this podcast is Rhythmia Life Advancement Centre. Rhythmia is a unique and special place to me. It's a healing resort fused with ayahuasca, meditation, breathwork, yoga, and lots of other metaphysical teachings. And they really sent me on a journey of healing and self-discovery that ultimately led to the creation of this podcast. So I really do owe Rhythmia a lot. And if you would like to go there and have a healing journey of your own, please visit them on their website at rhythmia.link/can, spelled KHAN, or give them a call on 877-835-1806 and receive a free shuttle worth $300 off your trip.